She'd never disobeyed a command until that Sunday. Karma, the retired K9 German Shepherd, stood up mid-sermon, growling low and refusing to move. Her eyes locked on a quiet woman in the back pew and the child sitting silently beside her. No one knew why the dog wouldn't sit, but by the time she barked, it was already too late to ignore her. Sunday mornings in the small town of Redridge always felt the same. The streets were quiet. The bakery's cinnamon rolls filled the air, and church bells rang across the valley. Families gathered at the tiny Redridge chapel, shaking hands and adjusting jackets before settling into the wooden pews. Pastor Miriam Lowell, always calm and kind, stood at the front of the sanctuary, greeting everyone with a warm smile. Beside her sat Karma, a retired K9 German Shepherd. For the past 2 years, Karma had been part of the church like any other member. She was always quiet during the services, never made a sound, and often lay peacefully under the pulpit. Most of the kids loved her, petting her after sermons and feeding her tiny biscuits. But today felt different. As the choir started singing the opening hymn, Karma didn't lie down like usual. She stood up straight, ears high, eyes fixed on the back of the church. Her body stiffened like she sensed something. Pastor Miriam noticed and gave a soft whistle, her usual signal for Karma to relax. But Karma didn't move. She took one step forward, growled low in her throat, and stared hard at a woman sitting in the last pew. The woman, dressed in a neat green coat and holding a soft handbag, had a pleasant smile on her face. Next to her sat a little girl, around 7 years old, wearing a pale pink dress and a light blue bonnet. She didn't move. She didn't smile. Her hands rested flat in her lap, fingers frozen like a statue. People began turning to look. A few chuckled quietly, thinking maybe Karma smelled something odd. But the growling didn't stop. Then Karma barked, once, loud and sharp. Pastor Miriam walked slowly down the center aisle. Karma, she said gently, "It's okay, girl. Come." She pointed at the floor. Karma stayed where she was, standing directly in the center aisle, her body now between the woman, the child, and the exit doors. She barked again, louder this time, more urgent. The woman stood up slowly and smiled politely. "I'm Veronica," she said in a soft voice. "This is Lucy, my niece. She's just very shy." Lucy didn't respond. She didn't look up, not even a blink, just stillness. Pastor Miriam felt a chill run down her spine. "It's all right," she replied kindly, but her voice carried a concern she couldn't hide. "Sometimes kids need time to warm up." Karma barked again, then took 2 steps closer to the pew, blocking the aisle. The sound echoed off the walls and seemed to shake the old stained glass windows. Whispers broke out in the room. One of the deacons, Mr. Henry Lee, a quiet man in his 70s, leaned in and said softly, "That dog's not barking at her. She's warning us." Pastor Miriam nodded slightly. She turned and made a small motion with her hand to the church usher, who slipped out the side door to make a call to Sheriff Jonah Hayes. Veronica reached down and gently touched Lucy's hand. "Sweetheart," she said in a syrupy voice, "let's step outside for a moment." Lucy didn't move, but Karma did. She lunged forward, not to bite, but to block their path. She barked again, louder, deeper, standing like a stone wall between them and the doors. That's when Lucy's hand twitched, just the slightest flinch. It was the first sign of life she had shown since entering the church. Pastor Miriam looked at the congregation. Everyone was silent now. The choir had stopped singing. No one was breathing too loud. All eyes were on Karma, the woman, and the girl. Sometimes, Pastor Miriam thought, signs don't come from voices in the clouds. Sometimes they come from a bark in the back of a church. Karma didn't budge. Each time Veronica shifted or tried to step forward, Karma stepped too, never letting her pass. She didn't growl anymore. She didn't need to. Something was wrong, and Karma knew it. Pastor Miriam felt her heart start to race. Whatever was going on, they had to be careful. But they also had to act. Help was on the way. They just had to trust Karma's instinct and keep everyone safe. Until Sheriff Jonah arrived, and deep down, Miriam prayed this wouldn't be a false alarm. But in her gut, she already knew. Sheriff Jonah Hayes arrived at the church within minutes. He didn't wear his uniform, just jeans, a brown jacket, and his old badge clipped to his belt. He'd grown up in Redridge and knew everyone in town, including Pastor Miriam. As he stepped through the church doors, he gave her a quiet nod. His eyes scanned the room and landed on Karma. Still standing guard at the back pew, Karma didn't bark now. She just stood tall and alert. Her eyes locked on the woman and the girl behind her. Pastor Miriam met Jonah near the front. "She hasn't let them move," she whispered. "The girl hasn't said a word. She hasn't even blinked." Jonah's jaw tightened. "Let me talk to the woman." He walked slowly toward the pew. "Morning, ma'am," he said kindly. "Mind if we chat outside real quick?" Veronica smiled, her voice smooth as honey. "Of course, Sheriff. Just a little misunderstanding, I'm sure." She stepped out into the small church foyer with Jonah, leaving Lucy behind. Karma didn't follow. She stayed beside the pew, keeping her eyes on Lucy like she was watching over a secret. Back inside, a teenage girl named Talia Cruz walked quietly toward Lucy. Talia volunteered at the church on Sundays and helped with the younger kids. She was kind, gentle, and loved animals more than anything. In her hand, she held a small paper cup filled with grape juice. She crouched beside the pew. "Hi there," she said softly. "This is for you. It's grape, my favorite." Lucy didn't move. Talia smiled anyway. "Your dress is really pretty, and that's Karma. She looks scary, but she's actually really sweet." Still, Lucy said nothing. Then, after a long pause, she whispered something, so soft it was barely a breath. Her name was Marley. Talia blinked. "Who?" Lucy didn't repeat it. She just looked down again. Talia stood up quickly and found Pastor Miriam. She said the dog's name was Marley, not Karma. Miriam's face changed. That's not what the woman said earlier. Meanwhile, in the foyer, Jonah was asking gentle questions. "Where are you two from?" "Just passing through," Veronica answered. "Family emergency. We're headed to a hotel near the train station." Jonah nodded. "Got a name for that hotel?" She smiled politely. "Can't recall it right now. Lots on my mind." Jonah's radio buzzed quietly. He turned away for a moment and answered it. "Sheriff," the dispatcher said. "We just got a silver alert out of Massachusetts. 7-year-old girl named Lucy Brown. Last seen with a woman claiming to be a distant aunt. Girl was wearing a pale blue bonnet." Jonah's blood ran cold. He looked through the doorway back into the sanctuary. He could still see Lucy sitting stiffly in the pew. And Karma, calm but focused, hadn't moved an inch. He walked back into the sanctuary slowly. Pastor Miriam met his eyes. No words were needed. He gave her a look that said, "We were right." Jonah stepped back toward the pew. Talia was still sitting nearby. She whispered. She also said Marley was her dog. Jonah kneeled beside the girl. "Hi there, my name's Jonah. I'm a friend of Pastor Miriam's. Do you remember your dog's name?" Lucy looked at Karma for a long time. Then she spoke, just above a whisper. "Marley was our dog. He slept by my bed." Jonah swallowed hard. He remembered the silver alert flyer, a photo of a smiling girl holding a stuffed animal. The name Marley stitched on its side. He turned back to Veronica, who stood near the door. "Ma'am," he said, his voice steady, "do you mind if I take a quick look at your ID again?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I already showed it to the pastor. I'd just like to verify something." She hesitated. Her fingers tightened around her purse strap. Slowly, she pulled out a laminated ID. Jonah studied it. The edges were off. The font was wrong. No hologram. It was fake. He handed it back. "Thank you," he said quietly. Then he stepped into a side room and made a call. "Dispatch. Run the name Veronica Greaves. Date of birth the 11th of April 62. Cross-check with any aliases related to the Bram case." Seconds later, the answer came. "No legal ID found. And yes, Lucy Bram is confirmed. Missing. Custody revoked from all extended family." Jonah exhaled and walked back toward the girl. Karma didn't bark. She didn't need to. Lucy had started talking, and that meant she was finding her voice again. Sheriff Jonah stepped back into the main sanctuary. His heart was beating hard, but his face stayed calm. Pastor Miriam noticed his expression and quietly moved closer. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She could see in his eyes that something serious had just been confirmed. Veronica stood near the exit doors, her small handbag clutched tightly. Her pleasant smile had started to fade. She was watching Jonah closely, maybe wondering if it was time to leave. "I think we've taken up enough time," she said, her voice still smooth. "Lucy and I will just be on our way." Jonah shook his head. "Just one more minute, ma'am." "I've answered your questions," Veronica said, her voice growing sharper. "She's my niece. This is all unnecessary." Jonah looked over at Lucy. Still sitting in the pew with Talia beside her, Karma stood silently between them and the door, her body firm like a wall. She didn't growl or bark now. She just stood her ground. Jonah crouched again, so he was eye level with Lucy. "Hey, sweetheart, can I ask you one more thing?" Lucy looked at him slowly. She didn't speak, but her eyes were no longer empty. They were watching, listening. "Do you remember your mom's name?" He asked gently. Lucy paused, then whispered, "Amelia. She lives in Auburn." Jonah felt a chill down his spine. It was true. All of it. He stood up slowly and turned toward Veronica. "Ma'am, I need you to keep your hands where I can see them." Veronica's smile dropped completely. Her hand twitched near her bag. "Excuse me?" She snapped. "Your ID is fake," Jonah said, his voice quiet but firm. "You are not Lucy's guardian, and she's not your niece." The church stayed silent. People barely breathed. Pastor Miriam stepped closer. Just behind Jonah, the air felt heavy. "You have no right to take her," Veronica said, her voice trembling. "I was protecting her. Her mother is unstable. She doesn't deserve Lucy." "She's not yours to protect," Jonah replied. "Lucy was taken from a foster center 4 weeks ago. Her mom never gave up looking." Veronica's eyes darted toward the doors. Her fingers clenched the bag tighter, like she was deciding whether to run. Karma stepped forward, still calm, still silent. She placed herself between Veronica and the aisle. Her eyes locked on the woman like a guard on duty. She didn't bark. She didn't need to. Jonah pulled his handcuffs from his belt. "Turn around, please." Veronica didn't move for a moment. It looked like she might fight back, but then her shoulders dropped. All the strength drained from her body. Her hands slowly went behind her back. "You don't understand," she muttered. "She needed me. I was all she had." Jonah cuffed her gently. "She had a mother, and she had a voice. Until you took both away." Lucy didn't cry. She didn't run. She just watched silently as the woman was led out of the church. Karma returned to her spot beside Lucy and sat down. The little girl reached out, her fingers brushing gently through the thick fur on Karma's back. She didn't flinch. She didn't look afraid. She looked calm for the first time later at the sheriff's office. The full truth came out. Veronica Greaves wasn't her real name. Her real name was Judith Carter. She was a distant cousin of Lucy's mother and had once worked as a child therapist. She had been allowed one supervised visit after Lucy's mom, Amelia Bram, lost temporary custody during a hard time. But Judith didn't follow the rules. During a shift change, she walked out with Lucy and never came back. For 4 weeks, she had taken Lucy from town to town, giving fake names, pretending to be her aunt. She told Lucy lies every day, said her mom gave her away, said no one was looking, said speaking to strangers would only get her hurt. Lucy had stayed quiet because she was scared, but Karma knew. Better, she hadn't smelled fear on Judith. She had smelled it on Lucy, and that's what she had responded to. Not disobedience, not a command, but a child's hidden cry for help. Inside the sheriff's office, Lucy sat in a small, warm room. It had soft cushions, books on a shelf, and a quiet hum from the heater vent. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe. Karma lay curled up at her feet, her head resting gently beside Lucy's shoes. She hadn't left the girl's side. Once, Lucy didn't say much. She held onto Karma's fur like it was a blanket. Her hand stayed tucked behind the dog's ear, gripping it tightly, like she was afraid to let go. Sheriff Jonah stood behind the one-way glass, watching. He asked the other officers to stay quiet and give Lucy space. Too many words might scare her off. She had just started to speak again. He didn't want to lose that. Pastor Miriam entered the room quietly, holding a paper cup of warm cocoa. "How is she?" she asked softly. Jonah sighed. "She hasn't said much, but she asked something earlier." "What was it?" She asked if Marley, her real dog, would still remember her. Miriam placed her hand on Jonah's shoulder. "That means she remembers him. And home, that's a good sign." Jonah nodded. "I spoke to her mom, Amelia. She's on her way. Did she ever stop searching?" "Not once," Jonah said. "She filed reports every week, sent emails to every state, called every shelter. She never gave up." Later that afternoon, a white SUV pulled into the back lot. Amelia Bram stepped out. She looked tired, more than just physically. Her face showed the pain of a mother who had spent weeks in fear. Her eyes searched the building like someone afraid of both hope and heartbreak. Jonah met her at the door. "She's inside," he said softly. With Karma, Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "Did she say anything about me?" Jonah smiled gently. She asked about Marley, said he used to sleep by her bed. I told her you said he still does. Emilia nodded. He hasn't moved from her room in weeks. Inside the safety room, Lucy still sat on the floor, Karma at her side. When the door opened, she looked up. Her face was quiet, her eyes wide. Emilia stepped in, her hands shaking. Lucy, baby. It's me. For a moment, Lucy didn't move. 4 weeks of lies don't disappear in seconds. She stared at her mom like she was looking at a dream. But then, suddenly she ran. She threw her arms around her mother and cried, I thought you forgot. Me. Emilia held her tight, rocking gently. Never. Not even for a second. I kept your room just the way you left it. Marley sleeps in it every night. Lucy pulled back and looked at Karma. Can she come too? Jonah chuckled from the doorway. We could do better than that. Let's get you both home. Karma stood, walked over, and placed her head gently in Lucy's lap again. Lucy smiled, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. Thank you, she whispered. Into Karma's fur. The next Sunday, the little church in Redridge looked different. The pew near the back had a new navy blue cushion, with golden threads stitched across the top, reserved for Karma. Our guardian service that day was full. People came from all over, locals, visitors, even news reporters. But no one came for a show. They came to see the girl who found her voice and the dog who helped her speak. Pastor Miriam stood at the front. Her voice was strong, but gentle. When we talk about miracles, she said, we expect thunder. We expect lightning. We expect big signs from the sky. But sometimes, a miracle sounds like a bark. The congregation chuckled softly, then went still again. Miriam looked at Karma, who sat beside Lucy in the front row. The German Shepherd wore a new silver medal on her collar, given by the Sheriff's Department, the town's first Companion Valor Award. Lucy sat proudly beside. Her mother, her bonnet was gone, replaced with a long braid tied with a blue ribbon. She looked taller now, not in height, but in spirit. She had started speaking again. She played with other kids at the park. She told stories about Marley. Her voice didn't hide anymore. After the service, under the oak tree behind the church, a small ceremony was held. Pastor Miriam read a Bible verse. He shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. Then Lucy stepped forward, holding a note. She didn't say much, just 7 simple words. She didn't sit, because I needed her. The crowd was silent. Some wiped their eyes, others just nodded. And Karma? She lay down beside Lucy, head resting on the girl's shoes, as if her job, at least for now, was done.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Love Tales of Tales, for long, heartwarming pets and animals, love stories that stay with you long after they end.